Hi guys, Buildzoid here, and today we're going to be doing the Z590 first impressions for ASUS motherboards. So, yeah, I've already gone through some of these, and I also think there's a couple boards missing that we'll see released later, but we have most of the lineup, and also we do have some prices now on Newegg. So, yeah, anyway, let's just sort of get into it, starting right at the top. So we have the Z590M-Plus. It's MATX, which is what the M stands for. This might actually be a really solid, like, considering that there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of MATX Z590 boards, this is probably going to be one of the better ones, just because low-end ASUS boards are generally, they might not have the best feature set, but the build quality a lot of the time is actually quite good. So... Yeah, anyway, let's see. DDR4 5100 apparently. Interesting. That's very high. Like impractically high frequency. Got 5 SATA ports. That's kind of low. You don't get a Type C internal header as far as I can see. Yeah, doesn't look like you get an internal Type C. It's kind of a lot of M.2 slots on there, though this one is like really low and short, so... Wait, oh, that one's probably just for Wi-Fi. Yeah, okay, so this one's probably for Wi-Fi, then you've got one here, which this one's going off of the PCIe 4.0 X4 from the CPU, if you have an 11th gen CPU. If you have a 10th gen, that M.2 slot just won't work, because the lanes for it won't exist, so... Yeah. And we've got these two over here as well. So yeah, you've got sort of, and I think these are off of the chipset. Anyway, rear I/O like it isn't too bad. You've got 7 Type A USB ports, which you know what I care about. You get Intel 1 gig LAN. That's nice to see that it's not like well, like I prefer my Intel LAN. Specifically the 1 gig, like I've had good experiences. I've heard the 2.5 gig was really broken, but I've never had it like I can't really test the 2.5 gig because I don't have a 2.5 gig switch, so yeah, anyway, that doesn't really matter on a board like this. And they tell us anything about the VRM? 8+2 DRMOS. I mean 8+1 DRMOS. It's gonna run hot. It's gonna run pretty hot, but it's manageable. Depending on how much airflow you have, it's manageable. So yeah, it looks like we're not gonna have a like high-end MATX option, which is a bit of a shame. Because there was one for Z490, or maybe I wonder if that one just wasn't like the whole reason why MATX boards are just like restricted to kind of like low, well, basically just to the low end, right? Like it's not very cheap, but I think that's the cheapest ASUS board there is for Z590, at least right now. Yeah, it is. So that's not super cheap, but I mean, I think the cheapest Z490 boards were around $150 unless you count some of the ASRock ones, which quite frankly, like what the thing is, like once you get down to like $100 Z590 board, you really have to wonder why you don't just go buy like a H series or a B series, because like $100 Z590 board is just bad. Like you can't, like you shouldn't overclock on it. You probably can't anyway. Like it's probably going to power throttle at stock. Like, so while, you know, like obviously lower prices would be nice, at the same time having like a super cheap motherboard with a Z590 chipset is kind of pointless because the board's going to suck too much to take advantage of the chipset's functionalities. So yeah, there's no troubleshooting LEDs on this as far as I can tell, which I find kind of disappointing because ASUS normally includes them even on not that high-end boards. But we could get a nice bigger picture. Yeah, there's just kind of nothing. Yeah, no troubleshooting LEDs. This is nice though, this new zoom. The ASUS has like cleaned up their website. It used to be completely unusable. And recently they've redesigned it, and I actually really like the redesign. It's a lot better. So yeah, but this looks like a solid like budget MATX option. Well, budget by Z590 standards, right? But yeah, so this looks like a solid MATX option. I can't think of off the top of my head of like a significantly better MATX option. Actually, no, I think MSI might have a board with 12 power stages for V-Core. So that would probably be stronger, but I'm also pretty sure that board's more expensive, so yeah. Anyway, moving on to the main thing with this is like if you're gonna run a like 11900K or a 10900K maxed out, you're gonna need quite a bit of airflow over the heat sinks. But with airflow, it should be doable. Like this should be able to handle even like 300 watts or 300 plus watts of CPU power draw. It just depends on how much airflow you give the heat sinks, and the heat sinks are pretty large and high surface area. So, yeah. But the thing is like you still need airflow. Like the heat sinks. Like the amount of surface area you need to be completely passive is absolutely ridiculous. So this, yeah, this really doesn't look too bad. So anyway, moving on to the Dash V, which still uses the exact same VRM apparently. So we've got, yeah, so exact same VRM again. It's $10 more, actually it's like $15 more expensive. I'm not really a fan of that. Like, yeah, it's a bigger board, but you're not really, like, I'm not seeing any advantages to it. New site's a bit unresponsive, but other than that, it works fine. Still no troubleshooting LEDs, which I'd appreciate that. There's also no BIOS flashback functionality. Oh, this has less USB ports. They traded USB ports for PS2, which I guess if you're going to use the PS2, you don't really... Well, no, you're giving up 2 USB ports for the PS2 port, so not a fan of that. Right, this only has 4 SATA connectors. Okay, this thing's actually kind of bad. This thing just seems to be worse than the MATX board in every way, right? Like you've got what? 4 SATA. There's no troubleshooting LEDs on either of them. There's no BIOS flashback on either of them. This has less USB ports. This also costs more for some reason. Yeah, only 4 SATA ports. Like, what? This is a bigger board. Why does it only have 4 SATA ports? Was there not enough space? Like, it's still got the same VRM. So yeah, this is just worse. And more expensive, which I really, really don't get. Like it's a bigger board. It should be easier to get more functionality because you have more space. So yeah, that's kind of dumb. I guess you get a slight... Actually, even the VRM heatsink is worse. Like, look at this thing. I'm pretty sure this is a worse VRM heatsink than what the MATX board has. So this thing's just like a straight downgrade with a cost increase, which I totally don't understand. Like, there's nothing stopping you taking an MATX board and stuffing it into an ATX case. Unless you have a case that doesn't support MATX boards, but that, like, most ATX cases will have the screw holes for MATX boards as well. So, yeah, I really don't see a single reason to go for this instead of the MATX board. Same VRM, similar heat sinks, if not maybe an advantage for the MATX, better rear I/O on the MATX, same number of M.2s, same number of like internal USB headers. This has more SATA ports. Like, what? And it's cheaper. Like that's the real kicker in my opinion. Is like this is also cheaper. It does more everything, and it's okay. Well, ASUS motherboard pricing never was really that never really made that much sense. So I can't be too surprised. But man, like I don't I don't get it. Anyway, let's take a look at the TUF Z590-Plus. So TUF is interesting. So TUF boards, way back like DDR3 era TUF boards, really good boards. They were like one step down from ROG. You'd basically get like an ROG board just with not ROG colors. And then And then they created the TUF Gaming brand, and the quality just nosedived off a cliff. Terrible boards. And then with like X570, they made the X570 TUF Plus, and it was like, whoa, this doesn't suck. And then with Z490, they like that has sort of continued, and with Z590, like yeah, it keeps going. So yeah, let's take a look around this thing. So this should have troubleshooting LEDs. Yeah, so we do have troubleshooting LEDs over here. So that's super handy if you have any issues. Internal Type-C header. You get a bunch of M.2 SSD covers. Still only the 4 SATA ports. Yeah, not really, not a fan of that, but anyway, what's the rear I/O like? 2 more USB ports, please. I would much appreciate 2 more USB ports. You do get 2.5 gig. Intel 2.5 gig. And what else do you get? Oh, well, you get a massive VRM heatsink, but we can already see that. Power design, we're looking at 14 plus 2 power stages. These are probably 50 amp parts, but there's a lot of them. Like this should be a good VRM. How much is this going to cost? 260. It's kind of high. Like this is a solid motherboard. I'm not impressed by the rear IO. Like at 260, it's like you should probably have BIOS flashback in my opinion, just because there's other manufacturers like MSI and Gigabyte who have BIOS flashback literally everywhere. Or well, Gigabyte has it straight up. Their entire lineup has BIOS flashback. MSI, I think, is almost their entire lineup. And then you have ASUS, where it's just like, no, you don't get BIOS flashback. Now, admittedly, it's not something, like, BIOS flashback is one of those features that if you don't need, like, when you need it, you really need it. But when you don't need it, it's completely irrelevant. So, yeah, but the thing is just like, this might have a VRM thermal performance advantage against other boards in this price range. So it might be like, you're trading, operating temperatures for features. But I think I'd rather have features because you can always just throw more, like, unless you're some kind of silence freak, you can always just throw more airflow at the VRM. Or I guess if you care about case aesthetics, you might not be a big fan of like zip tying a fan in roughly in the VRM area. But yeah, like certainly I don't see any issues with the build quality here. I'm just kind of wondering if this might not be a smidge too expensive. Unless this is... Oh, wait, that's the Wi-Fi version. Okay, so... Okay, no, so this should actually be like 240-ish. No. Because this is the non-Wi-Fi. So without Wi-Fi, this should be a bit cheaper. At 240, it makes kind of a lot of sense. Yeah, at 240, it should be... Like, 250 to 240, it should be much more interesting. At 260 with the Wi-Fi, well, I guess if you want the Wi-Fi, like the thing is the price premium for Wi-Fi with most vendors is like plus $10, $20. So yeah, you're probably not going to get a cheaper option for the Wi-Fi anyway. So what Wi-Fi even is that? That's the Wi-Fi version. Wi-Fi 6. Yeah, so you get like the expensive Wi-Fi implementation, not the cheap one. So yeah, this looks like a solid board if you don't want SATA ports. I still, like, why is there only 4 of them? Like, I'm pretty sure the chipset supports at least 6. And then, like, also if you don't really care too much for having, like, USB ports in the rear I/O. But anyway, like, this doesn't, like, if you like the feature set, I don't see a problem with this board. Except, like, maybe the price point. What else do we have? Oh, I guess let's just keep going in order. Dash P. So the X570 Dash P was really good. Like, for the price point, it was really, really good build quality. So I'm kind of expecting the same here. So yeah, 11 DR most power stages. So we get a 10 plus 1. Still only 4 SATA ports. You do get an internal Type-C now. The rear, okay, I'm not a... I feel like this is basically the same problem that the Dash V is, where it's like, well, okay, so this, oh, and it is a bigger VRM heatsink. Because the Dash P is like above the Dash V, and it uses the same style. I think it's a similar. It might. No, this one's slightly larger. The heatsink on the Dash P is slightly larger than the M. But yeah. So the M has a weaker VRM, but this is like this has less functionality. So and it's not like a like. It really depends on what you're gonna do with the board, I guess, as to which one's better. This, and I bet this still doesn't have troubleshooting LEDs, so yeah, still no troubleshooting LEDs. So it's just like this is a very like basic motherboard with a slight VRM upgrade and a bigger heatsink. I'm not really a fan of that. How much how much is it supposed to cost? Oh wait, I made a mistake. I thought the okay, no, so the Dash V is probably cheaper than the M Plus. That's probably 170 or 160. You know what? I'm pretty sure the last time I tried to do this video, I made the same mistake where I thought the Dash P was the Dash V on Newegg. It's not my fault. They look the frickin' same. Anyway, okay, so you spend like $15 extra for better VRM and like worse feature set overall and like downgrades in terms of feature set everywhere else. I still like the M Plus more. Yeah. So this board, like this is less bad than like the Dash V is just kind of like this is going to be cheaper than the M-ATX then. But I don't get why this has worse features than this. Like as far as I'm concerned, this should have the like same or better feature set than the M Plus. So I'm not really like yeah, I'm still not really a fan. Anyway, let's look at the Dash A. So I think this is like a white version of the TUF, basically. Yeah, 14 plus 2, so that's going to be the same VRM. Different heatsink, worse VRM heatsink. This thing's plastic, isn't it? Yeah, so we have this massive plastic I/O cover, so that's not doing anything for VRM cooling. You do get troubleshooting LEDs. Actually, this is a different layout, because the troubleshooting LEDs are like in a completely different location from the TUF. Oh, and you don't have the chewed-in PCB. 6 SATA ports at last. Why do they use these flat ones though? Like this is the thing that ASUS has started doing with Z490, and it's just like nobody else does this. I'm not aware of any downside to doing this, but it's just like why? Well, I guess if they have the space, you know, that's one way to put all the SATA ports on there. So yeah, this does give you 6 SATA ports, which is nice. You get a solid VRM, like actually a really good VRM. You get troubleshooting LEDs, a rear I actually like. Yeah, this is a solid number of USB ports in the rear I/O. You get 2 Type Cs. Yeah, you get 2 Type Cs on the back. You get a power button and a little standby power indicator LED. I think that's a standby power indicator LED. I would like, well, no, power button's nice. Like if you're testing the board outside of a like if you're pre-testing all your parts outside of a case, the power button makes it a little bit easy. Like the thing is, if you like slip with a screwdriver when trying to short the pins down here, you can actually like I've broken one board doing that by accident. So yeah, it's like very like you shouldn't like it's pretty unlikely that that happens, but you can actually like I've had it happen that if you shorted the wrong pins on the front panel header, it would break the board. Anyway, so that this just completely stops you from doing that. There's still no BIOS flashback functionality though. You do get 2.5 gig LAN from Intel. And how much are they planning to charge for this? We don't know. Oh, wait, this is even more expensive than the TUF? But what? Why? It doesn't have Wi-Fi. It's the same VRM. It doesn't have Wi-Fi. Oh, wait, I know why. This has switches, doesn't it? Yeah, this has PCIe 4.0 switches. Those are expensive. Those are very, very expensive. So we're actually going to go... So basically, the reason why there's such a big price increase, even though it's like, but wait, you lose the Wi-Fi. Like, isn't the Wi-Fi expensive? Well, yes, but the only thing more expensive than Wi-Fi is, like, stretching your PCIe lanes out properly. So you get one 16x slot, then you get a chipset slot, and then a bunch of 1x's. This thing, on the other hand, you get... Okay, we're just going to use the manual because... English, thank you. That's the best way to make... Like, sometimes the specs page isn't super clear, whereas this, on the other hand... Yeah, so you get X16, X8 mode. And actually you get X16 to... Oh, so you get X8, X4, X4 support. So that's really, like, the thing is, for that you need, like, PCIe switches and you need PCIe, I think, repeaters for PCIe 4.0. And those are expensive. Those are really, really expensive, which is why this board, it's like, but wait, this is not really that different in terms of feature set from the TUF, but it's, like, way more expensive, and it's like, yeah, because PCIe 4.0. I don't know why they don't do, like, I would have preferred if the TUF was more similar to the Dash A, and it was just, like, a Dash A without the PCIe switches. I think that would have been better. Or if they made a Dash A MATX board with 116X slot. Because this, like, I really like the feature set on that board. And the VRM is still good. And then it's just like, oh, and we're going to make it super expensive because, like, the thing is, you need this if you want to run SLI. But, like, SLI is super freaking dead. So I really don't... Well, what you can do with that is you could actually have... if you bought, like, an expansion card for extra M.2 SSDs, you could have a lot of M.2 SSDs. Also, if you have, like, any high bandwidth devices that need to be connected directly to the CPU, like, yeah, this gives you the option to do that. Whereas with the TUF, you can't do that because it goes through the chipset. Yeah, like, that's expensive to do. So it makes sense that this board is so, like, the price makes sense because of what the, like, functionality that the board has, but I don't know. Like, I feel like I don't know. It's a weird, like, it's a weird motherboard. Like, I think it's pretty niche that you would actually want that on a Z590 board. And then want the price increase for it as well. I think there might be some boards with PCIe 4.0 switches that are also cheaper. So those would probably be better options as well. So yeah, that's... But, you know, otherwise it's a solid board. It's just kind of like weird feature. Like, the thing is, it's not... Like, the price makes sense. It's just like, I don't know that the features make sense. It's like, how many people actually want that PCIe flexibility? Anyway, we've already looked at the Plus Wi-Fi, so let's take a look at the Z590i. We got 8 plus 2 power stages. Nice. For an ITX board, that's about as good as it gets. Memory support up to 5133. I was kind of hoping for higher because it's an ITX board, but yeah, like, that's solid. Oh, come on, it's like nothing on this page. So this page is, like, not very finished. I wonder if they have a manual that has more details. They do. Let's close those. Like, I'm wondering if this has a VRM fan. Yep, it has a VRM fan, which like that's totally reasonable on an ITX board as far as I'm concerned. Like there's just not enough space to put enough VRM or heatsink, so hey, shove a fan. Shove a fan in. I'm not a fan of the troubleshooting LED location. This has to be like they are color coded, so you're still going to be able to tell mostly because like there'll be like a green glow or a red glow or a yellow glow or white glow between your memory sticks and your 24 pin, but like that has to be the most like hardest to see location for the troubleshooting LEDs possible. Like you could not find a worse location for that. Like anywhere along the edge of the board would have been better, and it's sort of like no, just actually I think even next to the US, like next to a smaller cable or something. But no, we're jam it between the 24 pin and the DIMM slots. But hey, at least you get troubleshooting LEDs because a lot of ITX boards don't give you anything, and so you know like they're at least they're still there. So I do like that. Do we have a price for this? We do. Oh my god. $370. Well, it is an ITX board, and those come with a price premium for being cramped. So, yeah. I've actually seen a picture of this VRM. It looks like it's on probably on 70 amp smart power stages. Might be on stronger ones. What? Why can't we go to features? Now, it's a shame they don't mention what power stage current rating they're using. Actually, let's just keep going off of the... You get BIOS flashback, which is nice, finally. You get an M.2 SSD riser card, which is just how ASUS likes to do M.2s on ITX boards. I don't think this is going to be a very cost-effective ITX motherboard option. It might be like I don't think that it's going to be a bad ITX motherboard, but I don't think like if you just want a solid build quality Z590 ITX board, this I think is way too expensive. Because I'm also not seeing any like super unique special features here. Other than the troubleshooting LEDs, which you can live without them. Like it's better if you have them, but I wouldn't pay $70 for troubleshooting LEDs, which is I think the difference between like the more cost-effective ITX boards and this thing. So yeah, that's a thing. Anyway, let's take a look at the Z590-A, which we do have a price. What? No. No, you can't be serious. It can't actually... No. No. Like, this is stupid. Oh. Wait. Yeah, okay, yeah. It's like, this is completely stupid. Okay, Newegg, $330. That's way better. That's actually what it should cost. Well, it's not necessarily better. We've not taken a look at what the board can do. But that's like 510 is no. Absolutely no. Anyway, let's take a look around. So we've got troubleshooting LEDs up there. I don't like this weird tag thing that ASUS has on their boards. Like they've got so much branding all over the board as is, and then they have this weird flappy tag thing hanging off of some heatsink on the ROG boards. Like I don't get it. Like why? Still got the flat SATA ports. Still the same VRM as the TUF, I guess. So, yeah, I guess if you want this admittedly though has even bigger heat sinks, so that can help. Get an internal Type C. Yeah, teamed power stages. 6R PCB. I think already the TUF has a 6R PCB because this doesn't seem to have a better memory frequency rating. You again get the... Wait a minute. Wait, they're not splitting it to X8. They're splitting it to 4-4. That's really dumb. Why would you do that? Wait, did I miss that on the Dash A as well? Why would you split it 4-4? What is wrong with you? So that's why they didn't list X8, X8. Because like the reasonable thing would be to have X8, X8. And then the option to go all the way down to X8, X4, X4. But no, they're just hardwiring it for X4, X4. Like, what? Why? I guess capture cards or something. But, like, you could just hook that up to your chipset at that point. Which is, like, how a lot of Z270 and Z370, like, how, like, mainstream Intel motherboards have done this for, like, years. It would be that you'd run X8, X8 off the CPU, and then everything else was off of the chipset. And ASUS is here like, nah. X8, X4, X4 off of the CPU. And it's just like, but you can't, like you can't SLI off of that. Oh, and this has 5333. And this so this should also have 5333 then. And they don't mention. Okay, let's go to the tech specs. Okay, 5333. Oh, so I guess this is on a different memory topology from the TUF. It's got... Oh, wait. Wait a minute. Yeah, that looks like the same memory topology. They just removed a capacitor here. I don't like this old, yeah. See, this sucks compared to the new web pages they have. So apparently that one capacitor makes a really big difference, or it's a BIOS thing. Oh, I guess they also changed the capacitors in the socket. Yeah, that might also be part of it. Anyway, rear I/O looks solid. You get BIOS flashback. You get type dual. Wait, that's audio type C. Get a good number of USB ports though. 2.5 gig. Wi-Fi 6, of course. So this thing's 330. I would probably just get the TUF instead. Or the like Prime Dash A. Wait, did they take off? They remove the power button. So wait, what the like I'm really trying to figure out like wait, what's this board supposed to do? You get one extra Type A USB port, but you get two Type C's here. Like no. Like I'd say this is better except for the lack of Wi-Fi. And I don't even like Type C. Yeah, so I don't... This board is another, like... I don't get it. Like, they both have troubleshooting LEDs. They both clock RAM the same. They both have one internal Type C. Right, yeah, like, that's still the same. I guess you get more M.2 covers, but, like, a lot of your high-end M.2 SSDs come with their own heatsinks anyway, so it's just, like... Like, for the first one, you can just use the one that it comes with, and then, like, this M.2 cover up here isn't very long, so yeah, you could totally move that down there. You know, if your SSD came with its own heatsink. So yeah, I don't get this board. I really don't. Like, it's just like, it's a Dash A, but not really much different. And it is way more expensive. Like, this is... Like, even with the Newegg price, that is a, what, $60 price increase? Yeah. That's a $60 price increase for, like, a branding change. Like, they changed the, like, yeah, that's most of it as far as I can tell. Is like, yeah, we added BIOS flashback and we called it an ROG board, but it uses the same PCB as a prime board, has the same VRM as the prime board, has a bigger heatsink. Okay, yeah, sure. But it has like similar rear IO, similar feature set otherwise is like basically the same, and it's like $60 please, extra. It's got a Strix name on it. That's how that works. So yeah, really not impressed with that one at this point. Let's go for the Maximus 13 Extreme. This is going to be really expensive, isn't it? In fact, we're not going to get a price. I'm going to guess it's going to be $700. Because I think ASUS is going to charge like $1,000 plus for this thing instead. And the Maximus 12 Extreme was $700 or $800, something like that. So I'm going to assume this is going to be the same price. It looks a lot like it's pretty much the same board. I kind of want to go, what? Oh, there we go. It's just loading. What? Spec table? No manual yet? Aw. Well, no manual. That sucks. I was really hoping to pull up the manual for this board because, like, I like the Extreme boards. I don't like how much they cost, but they are definitely boards that if I could ask for samples, I'd be very interested. So yeah, you've got voltage read points, postcode, all of the buttons. You thought that was all the buttons? No, we got more buttons, switches for the various like LN2 overclocking functionality. Like this is basically an Apex, just like for 4DIMM Apex, basically. That's what it is. ASUS has toned down their memory VRM filtering a bit. It used to be like really insane with a bunch of SMD polymer capacitors, and now it's just like, no, we're just using through-hole ones. It doesn't make a difference. I think that's the main reason they toned it down. It's just like, yeah, it was one of those things that I liked about the high-end ASUS boards, but it's like, in terms of actual what it did for memory overclocking, it was like, didn't do anything. And it was certainly more expensive. Like, it was a, extra manufacturing cost right there. Can we get a picture of the rear I/O? What do we have? We have 10 gig, 2.5 gig, dual. We've got Thunderbolt. We've got Wi-Fi 6. About as many USB ports as you can fit. BIOS flashback, clear CMOS. Yeah, so this is like, I like this board. I really like, well, I'm not a big fan of the PCIe slot configuration, though I guess this is with the NVLink bridge spacing. So this is really designed to run those SLI, like this spacing is specifically for the SLI 3090s and 3090s. Yeah, it's a really expensive board. So, like, very niche in terms of its use scenarios, but it is cool. It's just a shame that, like, it costs so damn much. Also, the VRM is going to have no problem powering, any CPU that fits in the socket. New inductors. That's interesting. Ooh, actually, I can't remember. I think the Z490 boards still use the 400 nanohenry ones. These are smaller. These are probably lower inductance. They might have improved this transient response, or it's because I believe they're now using intersil, and so intersil might have different like inductor requirements for their designs. But anyway, so yeah, I rather like this board. You get dual internal Type-Cs. You get angled 24-pin. Ooh, you see, ASUS gets it. When you have an extra 6-pin for your PCIe slots, you put it over, like you don't have it under the graphics cards sticking straight up. It's physically impossible to plug that in. So that's cool. It was never really an issue with ASUS. It's like a problem with MSI and Gigabyte, where they'll put a 6-pin power connector down here that sticks straight up. So it's like, well, it's there so that if you're running a multi-GPU setup, you can provide extra power to the PCIe slots. It's just a real shame that, if you're running multiple GPUs, it will be physically impossible to plug that connector in. Like, come on. So ASUS doesn't do that, so that's nice. Yeah, so like for a ridiculous high-end board, this certainly looks like a very solid option. Not a board most people should buy, but like definitely like I like it. I don't like the price because it's going to be like $700 or $800, but as a motherboard, it's a good motherboard. Um, and then we got the Glacial. So you thought this was expensive? Well, you can pay extra to get a questionable water block. Well, actually not questionable, but like completely bloody pointless full cover water block that you would probably have better CPU cooling performance if you just used a CPU only block. And yeah, this block like water block that cools the VRM, CPU, and chipset. Okay, so first up, the chipset doesn't run hot enough to need water cooling. The VRM doesn't run hot enough to need water cooling, and the CPU can probably be cooled better if you just had a dedicated CPU block. So I don't know how like that's like my main problem with the full cover blocks is like I would not be surprised if most of them actually perform worse than CPU block like dedicated CPU blocks. Um because like my assumption with these is like they're limited production run, right? So you don't really care about like you don't like if you're making a full cover block, there's no real reason to also make it like spectacularly good at CPU cooling because nobody's going to test that. Right? People who buy these things don't actually care about like cooling performance or anything. They just want a motherboard with a full cover water block on it. You could probably like yeah, so I'm not a fan of these because it's just like you're probably giving up CPU cooling for a pointless added expense. Also, this PCIe slot spacing is worse. Yeah, I don't know why they shuffled it around. This is just worse. Um, yeah, it's the same board. It's just like, hey, do you want to spend extra and get a worse PCIe slot layout? Possibly also a downgrade in CPU cooling capabilities? Yep, get this. So I don't do full cover water block boards. Anyway, let's take a look at the Dash F, which we do have a price for, I think. Yes, oh no, we have a price for the Dash E, but not for the Dash F. But that's fine, because the Dash F should be, like, as far as I know, the Dash F is like the Dash A, but black instead of white. So actually what we're going to do is we're going to pull up the Dash A and do the comparison. So there's the Dash A. There's the Dash F. Yup, it's the same board. The color just changed. That's it. So everything I said about the Dash A also applies to the Dash F, though I think the Dash F is going to be slightly cheaper. Oh wait, no, they have different rear I/O. Why? This is better. Am I blind? Like 8? Oh no, this is still 8. But this has dual Type-C on the back and Wi-Fi 6E, whereas this is just Wi-Fi 6. Oh, this is going to cost extra, isn't it? And you get a clear CMOS button and a BIOS flashback button. Oh, so I guess they're adding some more separation between their boards. So this one I really okay. So now I really want to know what the Dash F is supposed to cost, because this is like a nice rear I/O that they've got on there. The VRM is ridiculous. It's like it's been a thing on ASUS boards for a while that you just have this massive row of inductors, but it still looks ridiculous. So I actually prefer this, though it should also cost more. So yeah, same memory support. I want this to be like 350. I think this would be very sensible at 350. Somehow, I don't think it's going to be 350. Yeah, it is the same VRM though. Like, I'm kind of worried that this will be like 360 or 370, which is not a huge price increase over the 350, but that would make it kind of expensive. I mean, even 350 is kind of expensive, but yeah, and you again have the 1644, which I don't really like. I still don't get the appeal of having 1644. I mean 844 for your PCIe line assignments. Oh, and they have the regular angled SATA ports now instead of this. Guess yeah, they added a fan header and better no, like they just shuffled the M.2 slots around. Wait a minute. How many M.2s does this do? This looks like it does a lot of M.2s. English, lovely. Oh yeah, it does 4. Okay, yeah, so this is gonna be like approaching. This is probably gonna be approaching $400, which is like a lot as far as I'm concerned. It's just like I like the feature set, but it's just like why like this is the thing is like ASUS. Well, actually, I think the whole motherboard, most of the motherboard vendors kind of do this, where it's like you get like basically the price goes up and you get a bunch of extra features that you may or may not necessarily care about just to get some like extra niceties. At least in my case, where it's like I mostly just want the overclocking stuff. I don't care about M.2 slots. I don't care about Wi-Fi. I don't care about LAN. I don't like 2.5 gig LAN. I don't care. Just give me 1 gig. I don't care about like internal type C connectors, right? It's just like if I'm buying a motherboard, I want SATA ports, USB ports, Type A USB ports, and PCIe slots. Oh, and a VRM and a postcode and like a safe boot button. Everything else is unnecessary. Yeah, and then you get this where it's just like, well, so like this is a cool feature set, but it's just like, yeah, this is gonna be pretty expensive probably. Cool board though. Like that is an interesting motherboard option. Let's take a look at the Dash E. Which we do have a price for the Dash E. Yeah. Oh man. Okay, no. Oh wait. Okay, so the Dash F is going to be 350. Because if this is 380, then the Dash F can't possibly be like approaching 400. Oh, so that's actually really cool. So yeah, the Dash F is cool. Let's see if the Dash E. Oh, the Dash E adds a postcode. Great. Okay, I like it a lot more already. It looks like they added an extra fan header. Like they're really, they're really reaching for like random things to remove. Where's the Dash F? Yeah, see? You get a water pump header, one of them. Actually, we should just use the manual. The manual is so much better than the marketing materials. That's the life hacks. If you want to like compare motherboards, just scroll through the motherboard manual. Way, way better. Yeah, so you get the postcode, which is awesome. You get 2 chassis fans. You get a water pump down there. Yeah, so they shuffled those around, I guess. You still get 4 M.2 slots. Oh, this even supports X8 X8. Whereas this is like X844. Oh, wait, that's to the M.2s. Oh, right, they're shuffling. Oh, no, but this is so much more useful. Yeah, so, yeah, this is like... Wait, how are they doing that? Oh, right, because they're... Oh, right, they're counting the first one. Yeah, because this first M.2 slot always goes to the CPU. And this right here only applies if you have an 11th gen CPU. If you have a 10th gen, then this right here doesn't work. That won't function. So I like this board way better than the F. And like there's not much room for a price gap between them. So I really don't get what ASUS is doing. Right? Cuz you've got the Strix Dash A, which is 330 according to Newegg. And then you've got the Dash E at 380. And then it's like, so in between them, you'll have the Dash F, which is going to be 350, which doesn't really do much more than the Dash A, and is just a lot worse, in my opinion, than the Dash E. So yeah, I like the Dash E. This is a really cool board. I guess the idea is that with the Dash F, you just get the M.2s, and that's kind of it. But the thing is, you also get looks like dual 2.5 gig instead of single 2.5 gig, which I guess is kind of. Let's just take a look in the gallery. There's no rear I/O picture? Why is there no rear I/O picture? Why would you do this? Oh, we'll have one down here somewhere. Connectivity. Yay. Yeah, so you have dual 2.5 gig, which is kind of weird, but like if you want dual LAN, there's your dual LAN. You still get the Wi-Fi 6E. So yeah, this board just does way more than the Dash F, and there is no way it's like massively more expensive. So like, admittedly, yeah, if you don't care about the extra features, like the thing is, like, if you don't care about the extra features, is like, why wouldn't you just get like go all the way down to the Dash A, unless you really need the extra M.2 slot, right? That's kind of my thinking on that. Anyway. Next board, we have the 13 Hero. So I like the Dash E. I've kind of noticed that the more recent Dash E boards from ASUS, like they've been pretty, like they're pretty solid. Mostly because it's like they have a postcode and they do all the other stuff. So it's like, yeah, I like this. And the other thing is, like, they're not outrageously, like, it's it's approaching $400, but it's still under $400, and it does a lot. So yeah, I like it. I like this quite a bit. So then we get the Maximus 13 Hero, which is gonna be probably, okay, that's Newegg is doing a $500 on that, which is what I'd expect. Postcode power button. Wait a minute. Does the E have a button anywhere? Oh, it doesn't. Like, it would be really cool if this had safe boot. Like, that would just make it perfect, but that would also probably make the hero pretty pointless. So, yeah, anyway, so you get dual 2.5 gig again. Clear CMOS and BIOS flashback. This doesn't really, like, so this rear I/O isn't really much of an upgrade over the E. There's a big price increase, though. They're going to tell us that they're using some crazy high-end power stages? 90 amp power stages. Well, that's where the price increase came from. That explains that. Better memory support? Nope. Not better memory support. Probably still a 6-layer PCB, which is fine. Like, you can make very good overclocking boards on 6-layer PCBs, but just like, so why is this $500? Because I'm trying to figure that out, and it's like, yeah, the 90 amp power stages certainly, add some cost, but I don't think the Dash E's VRM would have any issues with any CPU you can put in the socket, so I don't really know why you'd want to pay extra. Like, it even has the extra tantalum capacitors in the socket. So now I'm really confused as to, like, what on earth is this supposed to achieve? Let's see if we can pull up a manual. We can. Which one is this? This is the F, this is the E. Okay, so here we have the E. We're going to zoom out a bit so we get the whole board. And we're just going to scroll down a bit. Zoom in. Okay, zoom out. There we go. We got 4 M.2 slots again. X8, X8, X4. So oh, and then I guess there's some shuffling around with the SATA ports. Oh, Yeah, it looks like there's some shuffling around with the SATA ports and the, oh, bottom PCIe slot. I don't get it. Oh, actually, no, I think I know what the main difference is going to be. This isn't going to have the same voltage limits that this has. This is going to let you, like, this isn't going to let you get, like, full voltage range on the memory and VTT-DDR, and this isn't going to have those restrictions. You get a retry button. Oh, and then, of course, you get flex key, which, you know, you can use for safe boot. $500 is kind of a big increase. Yeah, like going from like that's $125 extra for like minor quality of life features, for specifically overclocking quality of life features. And a like pretty like I guess you get a pretty substantial VRM upgrade, but it's like the thing is like your VRM running at 80 degrees is perfectly fine. Your VRM running at 50 degrees is equally fine. Like I don't see a difference. Also, like for most people, if you're doing a gaming build, which is probably what you're gonna do with an 11th gen CPU, because it's not gonna have like some crazy multi-core performance. So, you know, it's like if you want crazy multi-core performance for like rendering or like in CPU heavy workloads, you're probably not looking at a Z590 motherboard anyway. So the only time you're gonna be hitting high VRM temperatures is like during stress testing, because most games don't pull that much power. Um, so yeah, I think like the E is really good, and the hero doesn't make a lot of sense because of that. Like I really like this, and then this is kind of like if this wasn't so like so much more expensive, but it is way more expensive, and you get some extra buttons. Like is my current understanding of the feature set increase? Yep. It's just like, yep, you get some extra buttons. And they both have 6 SATA ports, so I'm not really... You get a 1X. You don't get the 1X. Does anybody care about the 1X? Like, you can just use this bottom slot for that anyway. Oh, I guess the 1X doesn't affect your SATA ports in any way. But that's still, it's like, that's such a niche scenario to be in, where it's like, oh, I really, really need a 1X PCIe slot. Also, that 1X PCIe slot is like really close to your X16 for your GPU. So you're probably not going to be able to plug that in, right? Because if you have a triple slot card, yeah, you can forget about using that 1X PCIe right there. So that's basically a non-functional port, because like, how many dual slot cards do they make these days? Very like high-end dual slot cards are like not really much of a thing anymore. So that 1X PCIe slot is kind of pointless. And this board is too expensive. Anyway, at this point, I think we've gone through all of them, right? Yeah, the hero's the last one. So I guess they're going to maybe do a formula. Actually, I hope they don't do a formula. Because what the formula boards normally are is like a hero, but more expensive because they added a VRM water block, because that was necessary. Um, and I think they're also going to, apparently they will also be doing an Apex board, which I'm really excited for the Maximus 13 Apex. The Maximus 12 Apex I have, like, great board. Basically one of my favorite boards of all time. Um, but I'm kind of worried that it's going to be $500 now, which is like, we don't need a VRM upgrade, guys. Like seriously, the VRM was freezing through on when I was benching it on liquid nitrogen. Like we do not need a bigger VRM anymore. Like the Maximus 12 Apex VRM was plenty. Um, Well, I actually think it might just be a case of them switching from international rectifier to intersil parts, and intersil not making like, I'm not sure. Like, intersil, I don't know that intersil has a 70 amp smart power stage. I think they have a 60 and then they have a 90, and they don't have a 70 amp part. So, and maybe the 90 isn't like, if the 90 costs the same, like there's a good chance the 90 amp part actually costs the same as like the 70 amp Infineon parts. So, yeah, something to wonder about. Actually, wait, no, this still has the same old inductors, so this might still be on international rectifier. Right? Like the Extreme has different inductors, and that's significant because that's like it's a big change actually. Like, as much as I don't normally pay attention to inductors, like they are indicative of major design changes potentially. So yeah, this has very different inductors. Yeah, but okay, so I don't like the Hero. I do like the E. The E is really cool. Um, Now, I'm not doing like comparisons against other motherboard vendors right now, but this looks like a solid motherboard. I think this might actually end up in one of my like overall recommendation lists, whereas the Hero is just like it's too expensive. They might lower the prices. Like, that's happened to me a few times with ASUS boards where they'd get announced at like some insane price. I'd be like, this is like $50 over what it should be. And then like 4 months later, it's like, now the board is $50 off. And I was just like, what am I supposed to do about that? I'm not gonna make a new video every time the motherboard price changes by, $20. It's like, is this cost effective now? It's like, Actually, some boards drop even more. Like, there's been boards where they'd go like down by 30% from their original price, and then it's like, yeah, okay, now it's a really good deal. Like, originally it was like, eh. But then when the price goes down 30%, that's like, yeah, okay, now it's awesome. Anyway, but this looks really, really solid just as is. I don't really see any, like, I don't think it needs to be cheaper. I don't think it needs to have more stuff on it. I think it has, like, yeah, this is a really solid board. And then the rest of the ASUS lineup, I'm like kind of not. Like, the Dash A and the Dash F are just kind of weird, which by that I mean the Strixes. The Strix F and the Strix A, weird. The ITX, I think, is way too expensive. This looks like a solid budget board option. The Dash P is weird. The TUF is... I don't think the TUF is going to be like the most cost... Like, for the price point, I think there's going to be better options from other vendors. With, like, more features, more everything, really, in that price range. And similar power delivery capabilities, so then it's like, just get one of those instead. But, yeah, that's my first impressions of the various ASUS Z590 boards. Most of these, like, the main thing, like, it's good when the only criteria is like, is this board going to be cost effective, right? Like, because in the past it would be like you just have boards where it's like, no, this is just bad. It doesn't matter what price it's at, it's just bad. And now we've gotten to the point where, like, most of my motherboard criteria is like, oh, this looks like $20, maybe 50. Like, worst case scenario is like, I think this is off by like $50, $70 in terms of price point. Whereas most of the time, like, it used to be that there was boards which were just like really bad. Actually, I wanted to check one thing because maybe I missed something about. Nope, don't care. Oh, wait, this will also have the built-in die sense functionality, which is pretty cool. That is actually kind of useful if they don't have that on the Dash E, but you can live without that. Like, it's awkward to live with, like, yeah, like this right here, this is actually a really cool feature. Well, really cool feature. The reason ASUS has to go and do this is because of how they just set up their motherboards. Like, on Gigabyte and MSI boards, you can mostly just kind of go and ask the VRM controller directly to give you an accurate voltage reading. And then there's ASUS where it's like, well, we block access to the voltage controller. So we need to go, you know, bend over backwards to feed accurate voltage readings into the Super IO. Which is just like, you do realize if you just like didn't block access to the voltage controller, you wouldn't have to do all of this. You know, just saying. No, to be fair, even on MSI, like it was for like the Z490 Unify, it took several BIOS updates before we got access to the DyeSense readings on that board. Well, yeah, like this right here, in my opinion, is like this is a cool feature, but it's like the only reason you guys need to implement it this way is because your VRM setup is weird. But it is a cool feature. And well, there is one advantage to ASUS doing it this way. If you check like CPU Z voltage readings or like any random crappy monitoring software, all of the crappy monitoring software just gets voltage readings from the Super IO. So because ASUS is feeding like a good accurate voltage reading into the Super IO, which still only has like 9 millivolts of resolution anyway, so this is not great, but yeah, the Super IO is a pile of trash. Like, the thing is, like, the Super IO is just to get you, like, a basic voltage reading. It's not supposed to be super accurate. Which is also why normally it just measures the voltage behind the CPU socket, which is why it measures way too high most of the time. But anyway, because they feed the DyeSense into the actual Super IO, if you open up any random hardware monitoring utility that reads the Super IO, you get a, like, DyeSense level voltage reading without having to think about it too much. So that's cool. Also, that does not look like a CPU die. That looks like a Vega. That right there looks like a Vega. That does not look like a CPU. But anyway, wait a minute. Memtest pre-installed into the BIOS. That's kind of neat. But Memtest is, I think Memtest 86 is free. And I've also heard it's not that great for DDR4. So yeah. But hey, like you do get some basic memory stability testing functionality built into the BIOS, which is pretty neat. This I guess is better than like the built-in stress test that like EVGA has on their BIOSes, because EVGA's built-in stress test is like not, I think it's roughly the same load as like Cinebench, which is like not a stress test at all. Even like there's no metric under which Cinebench is a stress test. I guess maybe compared to like playing Minesweeper, it's a stress test, but otherwise it's like, nope, absolutely not. Last modified. Oh, that's cool. I didn't even realize they had a last modified log. Wait, did they do something weird to the USB ports? Nah, just a lot of USB ports. Cool. Anyway, okay, now this is going to actually be the end of the video. There. Yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe, leave any comments, questions, suggestions down in the comments. Wait, no, don't leave suggestions. Just don't. Like, I have plenty of stuff to work on. I don't need more suggestions. But yeah, comments, questions, you can leave those down in the comments section. And what else was there? I've said like, share, subscribe. Right, if you'd like to support what I do here with actually hardcore overclocking, I have a Patreon. There's a link to that down in the description below. There's also the HOC Teespring store where you can pick up shirts, stickers, posters, you know, the usual YouTuber merch. Both the Patreon and Teespring help out immensely with running the channel, so it would be much appreciated if you check them out. And yeah, links in the description. So yeah, that's it for the video. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.